Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for December 3rd, 2019. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if I could have Pastor Matt Reinhardt with Compelled Church come on up and open us up in prayer, please.
Well, hello. Can we pray together tonight? God, as we meet in here today, we invite you in this place. God, I pray for the leadership in here, Lord. For every man and woman that is represented, would you give them godly wisdom above all else today, Lord? As they make decisions, Lord, for this wonderful township, would you give them the boldness and the courage that is necessary to do so? God, I pray as they dialogue with one another, that their words would be filled with love, compassion, grace, and mercy. And God, we just ask your blessings on our wonderful township, on our schools, God, on our kids, and for everyone that lives here. And we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, item A, approval of a resolution to establish the Stonegate Subdivision Road Special Assessment District. I look for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Steiner to open the public hearing. At this time, or go ahead.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, at this time, if anybody would like to come up and speak on the Stonegate Subdivision Special Assessment District, now would be the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, we got some, oh, yep, come on up. Just state your name and address.
It's Kevin McCormick, 6749 Lockmill. It's really more of a question than anything else. On the letter that we received, it basically said preliminary numbers for costs. I was just wondering how firm those will end up being, and when will we really know what those final costs are and how it gets taxed?
Okay. It has to be within 10% of
Okay,
the bid.
Okay.
So if it is over 10%, then it fails. So
At the next public hearing, we'll approve the amount. The
Okay.
2,200 that we presented will be the amount that'll come to this board for approval, but if the bids come in under 10% or 10% higher, it'll still go forward at the 10%. If they go over 10%, then we would have to come back to the people and say, it's gone over, do you want to go forward, or the project is done?
Okay. And then one other question, just if you know what the final percentage of approval was. I know it was 58% when we started the whole process.
I'll be actually giving all that information after we close the public hearing.
All right, very good.
Okay, any more comments? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Okay, Ms. Hirschberger?
So attached, you'll find the resolution and the public hearing notice that I have sent out. As of today, at 5 o'clock, we stand at 118 parcels in this district, and 55% have signed, which also is 55% of the land area, or 65 parcels. We held an informational meeting on October 29th where we discussed the project along with Manick and Smith, and the possible costs were discussed at that time. The 2,200, which I stated, is the cost that Manick and Smith came back with. It'll be over 5 years, but that will be approved at our next public hearing. This petition, I've had a lot of questions about petitions. The petition was pulled by the residents of the subdivision. It was circulated by the subdivision. They created the district that this SAD is going to cover. The township is simply the facilitator, and we have no control whether this district is approved or fails. It's based on the percentage of residents who actually sign the petition and want to go forward with this. State law does say, though, that if it comes to a public hearing and it is over 51%, we must approve it. So at this time, if there's no questions.
I do have a question. This is a relatively newer subdivision. What kind of a fix? I know the engineering hasn't been done and all that, but is it a overlay? It's more than a chip seal, obviously.
Actually, Barry can
Come on
tell you
up, Barry.
exactly what.
Sorry, Barry, I didn't.
What the actual age, I think, is 23 years.
Yeah, it's older than you think. Time flies when you're having fun.
Is that right? I've been having fun for 23 years.
And, but no, it's a partial milling along the curb with a repair of the areas that are alligator cracked and block cracked and failed. Isolated areas, there's some bad catch basin areas that have dipped down and the curb needs to be repaired. So it's a milling along the curb and a single lift overlay.
Have they done crack fill prior to this?
No.
Not really, no.
Okay.
Nothing's really been done.
Okay. Just curious. Thanks.
That's 14 drains, actually, that they're repairing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so probably where a big chunk of the cost is coming from, actually. But
And there are isolated areas of pavement failure that will be corrected too as part of the project.
I did just want to mention, for the public, we did get a letter of opposition, and it does say my tax dollars pays for this. We all up here wish it did. The money goes to Act 51, and the money from there gets distributed to the road commissions. And then from there, that money, ultimately, some comes to Bedford Township that they spend on roads. There's nowhere near the amount of money they need to fix subdivision roads, especially in Bedford. There's 127. So it's enough money to fix our local and primary system, and that's with a partnership with us to help the local system. So the money's just not there. So we can continue to wait. And like Barry said at the meeting, our road's probably 5 years off of a $7,000 fix. So the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And this right here, for basically at the end of the day, we're going to have a brand new road, you know, for $2,200 a house, and it should last for a long time. So, and plus on the positive end, this board in the past year with special assessment districts, they'll do chip seals on those. So it's worked great.
Crack seal.
Crack seals, I'm sorry, crack seals, not chip seals. To kind of help maintain them. So that's where a lot of people, subdivisions fail, is the crack seals don't get done. And that's when the major issues happen.
Could I just clarify one thing that you said? None of the property tax goes for roads.
Mhm.
It's through the gas tax and the
License
license
plate.
fees. But if you live in Bedford Township and buy your gas in Ohio, you're basically not contributing to the road. So when someone says, my taxes pay for this, it's just not true. There is no funding, and you can talk to your state legislatures because they have the opportunity to change Act 51 that was put in place in 1951, but there is no funding for local roads. And in fact, there is no funding for only primary roads, but the road commission works with us to take care of our local roads too, but not subdivision roads. So.
Correct. If there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution to establish the Stonegate Subdivision Public Road Maintenance District as presented.
Support.
Motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes yes. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 2 on the is approval of the agenda. I'd like to remove 4A. Other than that, I look for a motion.
Is there a reason?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the November 19, 2019 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, reappoint Wendy Steinman to the Library Advisory Board for a first term ending 12/31/22. C, reappoint Aaron Adler to the Library Advisory Board for a first term ending 12/31/22. D, reappoint Henry J. Lievens to the Downtown Development Authority for a first term ending 12/31/23. E, reappoint Bryce Bankowski to the Construction Code Board of Appeals for a second term ending 12/31/21. F, reappoint Cathy Belville to the Green Initiatives Committee for a second term ending 12/31/21. G, reappoint Bill Zeiler to the Compensation Commission for a fourth term ending 12/31/21. H, reappoint Mary Ann McBee to the Compensation Committee for a third term ending 12/31/22. I, reappoint Phil Konasecker to the Compensation Commission for a second term ending 12/31/24. And J, reappoint Raymond Williamson to the Housing Commission for a second term ending 12/31/24. I look for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Motion supported by Mr. Montroy. Discussion?
I just wanted to say, for Ms. Steinman and Mr. Adler on the Library Advisory Board, just how much I've appreciated them on that board and how passionate and involved they've both been and just been assets to that board and just great additions to it. And that's it.
Perfect. We have a motion. Do we have a support?
Yes.
Supported by Mr. Montroy. Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. We have no presentations tonight. Public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only. Come on up.
Good evening. This is in regards to Monroe County Sheriff's Department, their activity for October. There were 5 officers that logged a total of 413.25 hours on patrol. They investigated 17 accidents. And in that 417 or 413 hours and a quarter on patrol, they wrote 2 traffic citations. 2. That means that every citation took them 206 hours to write 1 traffic citation. That came at a cost to this township at $17,769.75 at $43 an hour. There were 3 officers that went out there and actually did some really decent police work. They went out there and they wrote the lion's share of the tickets. They wrote 57 traffic citations. So there's no doubt in my mind that there are traffic violators in Bedford Township. I've been coming up here now for so long, I can't even count how many months I've been coming up here with the same complaint to this board, that the Monroe County Sheriff's Department has failed to deliver to this township proper traffic enforcement to keep our people safe. There were 43 accidents last month. At that rate, we're going to average 500 accidents, which is what we do almost every month, every year in Monroe County, in Bedford Township. This has to change. I don't know how it's going to change. That's one of the reasons why I said we should privatize, is because I don't see the role for change in that. If there was a role for change, I would say keep the Sheriff's Department. But this has happened every single month. I've come up here and have been faithful every month to read the statistics. I'm just reading statistics. I haven't made any judgments about any officer or anything. I'm reading statistics. It's right there in front of you. It's information for the whole township to see. And going 413 hours on patrol and writing 2 traffic tickets at $17,000+ is not acceptable police work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving on to staff reports. 6A, approval to purchase 4 LifePak 1000 AEDs from Stryker. Chief Massingill, come on up.
Good evening and thank you. The fire department would like to purchase 4 more AEDs. We'd like to stay with the Stryker or the LifePak model AEDs. which is why there's only one bid in front of you. They're direct from the factory that we purchase them. We don't go through a supplier or a wholesaler. It's pretty important that we stay with the same consistent type of AEDs because the patches are interchangeable with our life packs as well as with the Monroe Community Ambulance's life packs if we stay with this specific brand. Hence the reason that we brought forward this request. This is something we've talked about since 2017 when we were talking about capital improvement plans and replacing a number of them each year. And with the funds, the reimbursement funds from the hurricane deployment that we did earlier in the year, we would like to take some of that money that hasn't been budgeted and go ahead and purchase 4 more so that we can continue to replace the outdated AEDs that we're carrying in our fire engines.
Chief, quick question. How different are the automatic external defibrillators? I know that term.
That's nice.
Compared to the ones that you have now. I mean, they just don't work the same, or they?
We're having
should
trouble
they
with
change?
parts. So in the mid-90s, we're having trouble getting the parts and getting service and getting them certified. They're periodically supposed to be certified to make sure they're delivering the right amount of electricity. The technology is much better now. It delivers electricity in a different way than it did back then, without getting too technical. But they're more advanced. They're able to read and analyze some things, and simply we're having trouble getting parts and keeping them in service. The older ones.
How old are they? roughly?
Between 1990 and 98
So
is the
they're
ones
really
that we're
old.
looking to replace. We've still got 4 more that we'd like to budget for next year. Probably early next year, we'll be back and try to replace the last 4 that we need to replace.
Now, are they used differently? I mean, do you have to strap them a certain way? I mean, is that going to be confusing for the guys to have
no.
different types?
Not at all. We've got some new ones now. So,
Guys and gals, I'm sorry.
Right. So we've got new ones now. We've started to integrate the life packs just because of the interoperability with MCA and with our life packs as well. So it's nothing that's going to take any training beyond just in service.
Okay. Any more comments or discussion, Ms. Stinberry?
Did you check to see if they had a Black Friday special?
I'll double check and see if there are any coupons out there. We'll circle back around with the salesman and see what we can do.
Okay, I mean, just that time of year, you gotta look for your deals. Cyber Monday, whatever, we missed that too. Okay.
Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
Move. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to approve the fire department to purchase the 4 life pack 1,000 AEDs directly from the manufacturer Stryker for a total of $9,118.40 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion supported by Ms. Stinberry. Discussion?
One item. As mentioned in the chief's memo to the board, that the funds that were generated from our deployment down for hurricane drain generated some money for us to go down there, and this is a good use for some of that money. We've spent some of it before. This is another good use for that money.
Yeah, last year we replaced a 30-year-old set of Jaws of Life with a couple of deployments. This year we deployed once, and we always try to make sure that we're not only providing value when we're out of town doing that work, but when we come back to make sure that we're providing value to the citizens. This is a good way that we can provide value and give back to the citizens that have allowed us to go out of town and do that work.
Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, item 8A, vouchers for payment, Ms. Hirschberger.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General fund in the amount of $62,841.15. Fire district, $33,519.87. Police fund, $1,916.34. Park fund, $5,866.74. Transit system fund, $18.91. Metro Act fund, $3,125. Library fund, $7,067.20. DDA, $1,541.56. Sewer O&M fund, $6,311.71. Trust and agency, $3,654 for a grand total of $125,862.48.
I'll support.
Okay, motion supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinnevery?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Item 8B, approval of a bid for asbestos abatement and building demolition at 6602 Jackman Road. Okay, this is something that was, specs were done by the Mannequin Smith Group a month or so ago. It was put out for bid. We had 3 sealed bids. Trudy, if you want to go over them, you can go ahead, you opened them. But we took the lowest bid. I think it was at $22,980 for the asbestos removal and the demolition. A little bit over than what I was hoping for, but it's a great price. Actually, it's way under from what a lot of people were thinking. So they're going to tear out everything, backfill. The only thing they won't be tearing out is the parking lot, because I felt like in the end, after the roundabout's done, that'll probably, a lot of it'll be tore up and, you know, whatever. So I just didn't feel it was necessary to spend the extra money. So,
Then
Mr. Bushman, you can come on up if you have anything you want to add to that, or the company's name is David C. Hoffman and Sons. I believe they're out of Monroe, right?
Out of Monroe, yes. They do a lot of demolition in the county for this type of work.
Yeah. So right now, we've called the consumers. There is no gas. I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how the tavern's heated. I would assume it's electric heat. I know the house has a tank in it for heating. So we've called consumers, and Dave Hoffman will be calling the company Oops that comes out and does all that, but water's supposed to be being shut off.
South County Water decommissioned the water yesterday.
So they did already decommission, so consumers told me they're gonna be working on it ASAP, and they told me that 2 days ago, so.
Yeah, and Huffman indicates his intent to move as soon as the work is completed by the utility companies.
Ms. Tenberry?
Yeah, did you approve the Huffman?
We're doing that tonight.
Sounds like it's already approved.
Well,
I mean, you said you did say that. You
oh,
said-
did I? Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you said
No, we have to approve it.
approved. Okay, well, sounds,
approve
all
one
the
of 'em.
conversation sounds like, oh, David C. Huffman's doing it. I mean,
Well, I did
I'm
actually
just saying,
say it, I'm sorry, yeah, we
prior
gotta
to the-
approve one of these tonight. I guess I was assuming that we're gonna go with the one that's that much cheaper.
Yeah, you know what they say about assuming. The David C. Huffman, I think that maybe we should read to the public what the bids were, so that it's,
We had DNR demolition was at $28,070, and Salem Bean Trucking and Excavating was at $52,025, and then David C. Hoffman and Sons was at $22,980.
and I have another question. His shows that there's a cashier's check. He deposited a cashier's check, is that right? And was that required of the bid? And none of the other ones did?
it was either a cashier's check or a bid bond, and the other two did the bid bonds for 5%.
Okay, that's his, and then, it doesn't make any difference one way or the other, it's just my curiosity. Is this the county commissioner?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know what his business was, but, I mean, it doesn't make any difference, I was just curious. And then my last question, on the bid document that went out, every one of them showed a $2,500, I don't know, something that was printed on there so that everybody was gonna get at least $2,500. I'm not understanding that.
It's only used if it's needed. It was a contingency should we encounter something else during construction on the asbestos or any of the other removal work. If it's not used, it will be deleted from the contract. It'll be $2,500 less.
Okay, so his bid of $22,980 includes that $2,500?
Yes,
Okay.
should have.
No.
It did not. I
no,
guess I wouldn't know.
Not
when
one
to
of
go.
them included that. It's just an extra amount if
Okay,
needed.
I wasn't sure if that.
Okay, so if needed, if it goes beyond, it could cost us up to $27,980, but that would also be true of all the other ones, that $2,500 added on. Okay. All right, just curious.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
if they
could be-
misunderstood, but each one of them did it the same way. They did not include that amount in their bids.
Okay.
Okay, thank
And just so the public knows that when bids come in over 20,000, they're sealed. So they bring them in, they seal them, and we have typically 3 people, but, open them up, and whoever wants to be there can be there opening them up, which one of the contractors were there when we opened them, so there's no way of, hey, so-and-so's got a bid, here's his, none of that can happen, so.
Well, I wasn't,
Oh, I know, I'm
I
just saying.
wasn't intimating that, because he's a county commissioner, he got some deal. I didn't mean that at all, because everybody has a right to their own company, and I'm sure that that was all done on the up and up. I was just curious, having seen the name, if that's,
I was hoping for a lot more bids. We called all local contractors, encouraged to bid, so.
okay.
Mr. Steiner?
Just to add on, so I don't see where a lot of contracts have that 10% overage contingency, so to me, that $2,500 probably takes care of that. Is that correct? So we wouldn't see up to 10% plus the 25?
I'm not sure how they're,
The amount that was bid by Huffman was a lump sum bid for the work to be completed in totality. And we had the 2,500 for a contingency, yes.
Okay, so
So I
there's no-
think what
so
you're
there's
saying,
no
the answer
addition.
to your answer, the answer to your question is yes.
Right, because it would equate to closer to 20% than if we did it the other way. And then, I'm sure you did, but you only mentioned consumers. I would assume that you talked to MGU as well for your gas?
Michigan said they didn't have any
There is
gas
no
there.
gas there.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but you didn't
Yeah.
mention, you just said there's no gas, and then you said consumers right on top of that, so.
Yeah, Michigan Gas, when we called them, said
Okay.
there wasn't any hookups there, which surprised us.
Okay.
I believe actually there was an oil tank in the basement.
That's what Al said, but I don't remember seeing it when I went down there, so that's
There
why I
is.
kinda, in the
There was.
basement of the house.
The
not
house.
The tavern.
I don't know about the
I think in
tavern.
the tavern also there was an
Oh.
oil tank, I believe.
I thought he was saying the house. I'd like to add just a vote of confidence from Manick Smith of David Hoffman of that just you guys have experience with them and like what you had put in this bid or in our packet that they do jobs like this successfully and within budget on a regular basis, and having that confidence in them is that's a nice note in there.
Yes, he works throughout the county and he does a lot of demo work through many other townships for houses and similar type structures.
Because that matters, especially when, does this other one say 70 days was their estimated completion?
Yes.
So that's nice to know that 3 to 4 days is a lot nicer. And unless there's more, I'll make a motion to approve the bid for asbestos abatement and building demolition accept the bid of David C. Hoffman and Sons for asbestos abatement and building demolition at 6602 Jackman Road in the amount of $22,980.
Support.
Okay, motion in support of Mr. Francis. Discussion, Ms. Tinneberry?
Could I just add a friendly amendment, because this is approving the bid amount? Shouldn't we just add with a contingency of 2,500 possibly to be added on, so that if it comes back 27 something, 28 something, we won't be questioning paying over? So just add that in.
I'm not paying more than this.
Well, then,
Wouldn't it be a change order that we'd have to approve anyway if it did?
I don't think it's as long as it's written here on the bid.
We had the contingency of $2,500 in there in case we had encountered that, and it's probably appropriate to have that. as-
All right, I'll accept it.
Just
Just-
as Barry said. I'm a
Paul, do
woman,
you
I
accept
can say.
the friendly amendment?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion, any more discussion? Seeing none, just call the roll, please.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Francis,
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Steiner,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. Thank you, Barry, for being here. Item 8C, approval of SEMCOG, Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, 2019 and 2020 membership. We had on the agenda for an update on SEMCOG. That's not happening tonight, but I will just say, we utilize SEMCOG constantly in this community, in this township. Al, prior to the deputy, regularly attends SEMCOG meetings on a regular basis. I'm on their executive board for the grants. So we're very involved, and we get a lot out of it at the end of the day. I truly feel we've received grants for downtown Temperance, for the TAP grant, in the amount of, I think it was $300 and something thousand. So I highly recommend we stick with the membership. Ms. Stenberry?
Well, in the past, I've been opposed to TMACOG membership because we don't and can't receive money across the border from them. But I think in light of SEMCOG, it is a very important organization for township government to be involved in for grant purposes and other kinds of educational training. And in fact, their annual amount is nearly half what it was for TMACOG. So I'm all for investing in SEMCOG.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is. I move that we, let's see, is it joining or what exactly are we doing?
Renew our membership.
Renewing.
Yeah, renewing our annual membership at $4,063 for our 2019 through 2000, wait, it says
Right.
2019 annual membership. Should be 2000, okay. Anyway, the membership to SEMCOG at $4,063 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8D, direction on the rezoning request for parcel number 5802-034-020-00 and a portion of 5802-034-018-00, Temperance Animal Hospital, from C1 local business to C3 general business. Ms. Tinneberry, if you'd like to kind of give us a...
Actually, I apologize, but I've been out of commission for the last month and was not involved. Actually, this has not come to the planning commission yet, but the planning department. I will say that I did call Karen on this because I was wondering why there wasn't an application from Temperance Animal Hospital or CLR Holding. But they do have application on file, she said, and so I'm thinking Trudy might have more information on it than I do since I've been in Brazil. Not really, I'm kidding. But I have not been around for the last month, so.
So this board directed planning to send everything to us to say if we're going to move forward. So what they need is our direction. Do we want to give them direction to move forward with this rezoning? That's all they're asking for.
That's what I thought it was.
It's not an option, you have to. A landowner has the absolute right to request a rezoning of their property, and we have to process it. I think our resolution that was adopted applied more to a township-type initiated rezoning, so just to throw that out for your consideration, it has to be done.
So we might want to tweak that so these don't come to us and stall the process any longer.
Is the applicant here? Would you like to come up and kind of give us a little explanation of your thought process behind it?
I'm Chris Ravery. I own CLR Holding and Temperance Animal Hospital. So we actually are doing a new building. Right now, there are 4 parcels, one of which is zone C3, which a veterinary hospital has to be on C3. Our present hospital is on C1, so if we were to burn down today, I could not build on that piece of land. In doing our plans, what we want to do is make the 3 parcels all C3, so it has 1 parcel number, 1 tax number. and then are able to do a more unified corner there where we are presently. And what we are doing in changing the zoning, it was recommended to do this first before we go and then start doing different layouts for property lines. So I do have, I think you have the pictures. If you have questions on that, I can try to explain that to you. So right now, the picture that I believe Karen gave you, what she has as 1 is right now where our animal hospital sits, and it's zoned C1. We are going to build the new animal hospital on the parcel she has labeled 3, and then parking will be in that zone 1, and then that partial, it says request to rezone this portion, which is number 2. Those 3 areas will all be C3.
I think it's awesome. I think it's going to look really cool, and like I understand it. And just to, I guess, further explain a little bit, it's the purpose of the rezone is to clean up the entirety, because you can't make it all one parcel if it's not all one zone.
Correct.
So it needs to all be C3. And since Mr. Goldsmith already told us we pretty much have to, I will make a motion to give the Planning Department direction to move forward on the rezoning request for parcel 5802-034-020-00 and 5802-034-018-00 to move, for them to move forward, changing it from C1 local business to C3 general business.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion. I just want to say, that's what this board wanted, was for these decisions to come here first, and then we'll give direction to the planning commission. I mean, I don't know why, what would we tweak? You said something about tweaking.
Well, I think the intent was the township can initiate rezoning on its own. That's allowed by law, it's allowed by our ordinance. Before that was to be done, the board members said we collectively as a board should discuss that before we refer it to planning or before we refer it to the planning commission. When a landowner requests to rezone a parcel of land, statutorily, we're obligated to go through the process. They submit an application. It's reviewed by planning. It goes to our planning commission for a public hearing. Planning commission makes a recommendation. We no longer have a county planning commission. Then it comes directly to the board for decision on the rezoning. And then, as the applicant said, they'll go through their site plan review approval process with the planning commission. If it's a special use issue, they would do that with the planning commission. So I think the separation is whether it's a rezoning request that's submitted by a landowner or whether it's initiated by the township.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and support. Discussion. Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clement?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 7-0. I really think it's gonna look nice as well. It'll definitely clean it up. I mean, so it'll flow nice. So just a quick question. So now the building will be on that second lot, will it be towards the back? And then, so mainly all the,
So it'll be towards the back and towards the road, and then the parking will be more towards where the homes are now, as opposed to putting the building there and having the barking dogs, and et
Yeah,
cetera. We're
yeah.
trying to be as best neighbors as we possibly can be. Let the dogs bark on the road versus bark to people's homes. And also give us better parking. Any of you have come by our corner, our parking is atrocious. And so that's hopefully gonna just make that whole corner. And our building, you know, some of you might remember, it started out as an old gas station. We added on 3 times, so it's very inefficient, and, you know, we're excited about it too.
well, I know I can speak for the board and say that we appreciate you investing in our community. So, thank
Been
you.
here for 40 years, don't want to leave now.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't burn down either. You got the chief and his team.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 8E, board consideration to close the township hall on Monday, December 23rd, 2019. Mr. Francis?
I was approached by some employees of the township wondering whether or not the board would consider closing on Monday before Christmas. We're already going to be closed Tuesday and Wednesday for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. They have offered to use a personal or vacation day to make up that time. We'd done that before on a holiday. I forget which holiday it was right now, but we did that before, and it worked fine. We don't anticipate a lot of business on that day, so it wouldn't be affecting very many people that I can foresee. So I just said I'd bring it to the board and let the board decide.
Ms. Tenneberry?
Well, the purpose of this township building and our township employees is to service the public. And I know we did it once before. I didn't vote for that either, but that was on a Friday. And I think that, well, first of all, the way I try to make decisions is whether they benefit the public. And so my question would be, and hopefully someone would answer, what is the reason that benefits the public for this request? Number two, we approve our meeting dates, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't apply. We approved the personnel policy with all of the listed holidays that we would, that we approved, that we would be closed on those holidays. And I don't think the day before Christmas Eve is included in that. So that's just a comment to make mention of the fact that we've already approved what those dates are, and to come back and make changes after we approve that is, in my mind, not good decision-making. But these employees already can take a vacation day or a personal day or whatever time off they have. I don't know why we'd have to close the township hall when they already have that option of taking that day. What this does is gives everybody not a free day. They're all going to be willing to take vacation, but it gives them a day off that they have the right or opportunity to take it already. But then it closes the township for, I mean, I know what Mr. Francis just said, but how can you guess how many people will want to come in and pay their taxes on those days? And I realize that it provides more continuity if you can get one more day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I talked to some people, in my family especially, nobody gets that. Nobody gets to take, just because the holiday falls midweek, they don't get the option of having off the day before the holiday. So 2 questions. One, I need a reason that benefits the public. And my other question is, then is this going to also take place on the day before New Year's Eve? No. The very next Monday? I mean, why? What's the difference? They get New Year's Eve and Christmas Day. Those are my questions.
Okay, I can respond to the last one first, if you will. The day before New Year's Eve, I think the tax office needs to be open that day. People like to get their taxes paid before the end of the year. As far as the other, what's the other benefit to the public? I can't think of any specific benefit to the public at large, but some of the public does work here, their employees. We're not closing the office, per se. They have the ability to pay their taxes through the drop box, which is, to me, one of the best things we did when we built this building, is have that drive-through window on the drop box. In addition, they can pay online. And a lot of people have started to do that, and that's good. So there is a way that people that want to pay their taxes on that day still can.
Does it cost extra to pay online?
Pardon me?
Does it cost extra to pay online?
If they use a credit card, it does, yes.
What other options are there to pay online?
You can set up an automatic debit to their account.
Okay, so that
Many people have
only,
done that, are gone over the winter and they want them paid, they can do that. There's a form they have to sign authorizing us to draw from their bank on X date.
but that really wouldn't benefit people. You've already had that, if you do that, you've already had it set up. You're not going to be able to come and find the office closed on Monday and then go home and pay online because you haven't had it set up already. So those people that do it have already done it and continue to do it. I'm talking about the people who drive over here and find the office closed.
I don't have a response to that, other than you can't please everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
No matter what you offer, there are some people that aren't going to be able to do it that way or at that time.
Well,
So-
I have another suggestion. The 3 full-time elected officials could be here and keep the office open.
That's a good idea, Nance. If I did that, will you join me?
I will. I will.
I was afraid of that.
I will. I'll help out. I'll be happy to.
Any more comments or discussion?
I just had one question. I hear they. Are we positive that all employees are all willing to burn their time to make this happen?
Yes, they
We
were.
know, we know that factually.
Yes.
What happens if, like, for Nancy's example, we vote this down and then everyone takes that vacation day?
Then you've got a dilemma.
No.
Then your full-timers
no,
have
be-
to be here.
No, because you have to have your vacation day approved.
Mhm.
It's a have to be approved by department heads.
Oh.
So if
They could all
it's going to cause their department to be short, then I would assume they,
Does everybody have a sick day left?
Yes.
Oh.
but are we making a decision for the benefit of the public?
I look for a motion.
You don't want me to make a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I guess to follow through on what I agreed to do, which was present it, I guess I'll make a motion that we approve the request to close on Monday, December 23rd, for reasons stated.
I'll support.
Okay, motion in support of Ms. Hirschberger. Discussion? I will say next year, they did look and the days don't fall like this next year, so won't have to worry about it next year.
And based on previous years, we've had hardly any traffic. Most people are already started their Christmas vacation and are gone. So it's usually dead.
Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Tinneberry?
No.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
In the spirit of Giving Tuesday, I'll say aye. I'll be working, but
There you
I'll
go.
vote for that.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-1. Okay, moving on to comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes for each individual. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Troy Goodenough. I'm here this evening to introduce myself to those of you that don't know me and to announce that I will be seeking the office of Monroe County Sheriff in the 2020 election. I'm currently a 29-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office, and I hold the rank of Major of Jail Operations. My education includes a bachelor's degree in organizational management from Spring Arbor University and a master's of public administration from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. I want to take this time to thank the board for their efforts in strengthening the partnership between the township and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to provide enhanced law enforcement to the citizens of Bedford Township. As sheriff, I pledge to leverage every resource available to the Sheriff's Office to ensure that the citizens of Bedford Township receive good quality service, and when they call 911 for police assistance, a deputy sheriff will be available to respond. Under my vision of the Sheriff's Office, excuse me, we will not simply to respond to calls for service, but we will initiate proactive law enforcement and crime prevention. This includes working smarter and using crime analysis and predictability models to know where and when to deploy our resources to appropriately suppress criminal activity. I build bridges to solve problems, and I value teamwork to accomplish the objectives of this township, the citizens of this township, and the office of the sheriff. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. 3,000 years ago, a little shepherd boy was out there tending his flock. Dad said, hey, I want you to go to your three brothers who were with the Israelite army. They're encamped against the Philistines. I want you to bring them some food. For 40 days, the Israelites were encamped against the Philistines, and for 40 days, this big giant, about 9'9", came out there and taunted them. His name was Goliath. David heard that. He was a teenager, probably 16 or 19. He heard that and he got indignant. For 2 or 3 years, I've been coming up here, and I feel like he does, that I'm going up against a giant, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. I don't have the resources like Goliath had. David didn't have much resources, but he trusted in the Lord. So I'm going to announce tonight that I'm going to run for sheriff as a Republican for the 2020 election. I don't ask much of the people of this township or the people of this county. I ask one thing, or actually two things. You know I'm a Christian, you know I'm an ordained minister. This is what I asked. I said, everybody in this county, in this township, that calls himself a Christian, I want you to do two things for me. I don't care whether you're Catholic, I don't care whether you're Presbyterian, I don't care whether you're Christian and Missionary Alliance, I don't care whether you're Church of God or Church of the Nazarene or independent or the Assemblies of God. I ask you to pray for me because I need strength in this. This is not something I thought about. This is something that God has laid on my heart. I do it for one reason, because I'm passionate about the people in this community. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I served my country for 3 years honorably in the United States Army. I served this state honorably for 23 years. I don't have to prove anything. I could sit at home and enjoy my retirement. But because of my passion, I can't do that. I can't walk away from this. I have to face the giant in my life. So I ask the Christians in this community to pray for me, that God will give me wisdom, give me strength, give me courage to proceed with this. And secondly, I ask them to do this, to pray for me, to ask whether or not in 2020 who they should vote for. I don't ask them to even vote for me. I ask them to let the Lord tell them who they should vote for. That's what I'm here tonight to do, to stand before you and say, I want to do something for this community. I don't have to do it. I'm 76 years old. But don't let my age fool you. I've got life experience. I've got experience as a police officer. And plus, I have personal experience as just being part of this community. That's why I come here to all these meetings. Nobody in this community has spent more time at these meetings than I have. No one. No one has been more diligent to do the kind of work that I've done to research what's been going on with the Sheriff's Department. I make this vow to the people that work in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, to the civilians, to the men and women who are deputies, to the people that are in the corrections. I don't care whether you vote for me. I don't care whether you speak out against me. I don't care whether you put a sign in your yard or not. If I become the sheriff, you're going to be treated with fairness and equality. Even though I'm running as a Republican, I believe that the Sheriff's Department needs to do two things. They need to act properly and act righteously, and they need to represent everyone, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat or an independent. The Sheriff's Department should be nonpartisan, just like the judges. And I've said that all along, and my feeling that that's what it should be. And that's what I'm going to do if I'm elected. The chance of that happening, well, I'll leave it up to the Lord. But I can't sit here and not say that I want to do something for this community. I could go home and watch TV, play a lot of golf, and enjoy my life, and nobody would be able to say anything against me. But in my own good conscience, I can't do that. So I just pray, I hope that you pray for me and consider me in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Dale Track, 2842 Sanibel Lane. I know a thing or two about persistence. I've been up to this mic quite a bit. I'm going to tell you, we have moved mountains here at Township Hall. And unfortunately, I couldn't make the last meeting. Wanted to compliment the board on their continued effort to comply with the state healthcare law. Why is that important? I've talked to a few of you before about this. Not only is it showing that you're being fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money, and a little background for people, that means the state healthcare law means township employees and elected officials will pay 20% of their healthcare costs. And prior to 2016, that hadn't happened. And they're moving with great speed on this. We're almost there. And I just wanted to compliment the board on their efforts. But there's another reason. It's abiding by a state law instead of using a loophole. Now, that transitions to something else that's important here. You're getting mandates by the state, by state elected officials, that you have to file financial disclosure forms. I'd like to ask this board to do 2 resolutions, and I know they're largely symbolic. The first one is our state elected officials don't have to file financial disclosure forms. They don't have to disclose income over $1,000 that they might receive from somebody, business and property investments, gifts and travel over $500, recent positions on boards or organizations, liabilities more than $10,000, or any future employment agreements. Now, you guys are mandated to fill out financial disclosure forms. They're not. They are Michigan is one of 2 states that doesn't require it. Idaho is the other one, and they're only a part-time legislature. Now, people might wonder, okay, why is that important? Well, I'm not saying there's anything nefarious, but wonder why no fault has been around for 46 years. Because it leads into the next resolution I'd like you to pass. Right now, Michigan is one of 9 states that doesn't have a cooling off period for legislatures that retired to become lobbyists. So they leave the legislature and they go right working for some other company. And when it comes to conflicts, it's all Scout's honor when it comes with that financial disclosure statements. So I'd like the board to consider those two resolutions and let the state know that we're tired of being played. You're tired of being mandated to do something that they're not. It's the same ball game. So it's all about transparency. It's all about making sure that the people's work is being done in the daylight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public?
Ken Gagne, 8311 Lambert Street. I just want to touch base on the bid for the demolition. I heard a couple people up on the board. They didn't pick up on it. 22,000, I guess it was $900 and some dollars. And so it's 22 and some change. When you put $2,500 on top of that, you won't reach 27. I heard 27 mentioned a couple of times. That was where it was going to top out. Well, 23 and 25 is 25.5. And the other thing I want to touch base on, I don't do a lot on Facebook, and I don't think much of this Bedford Unleashed, but there was some comments about Bedford debt. And when I seen the Bedford debt on my taxes, I'm thinking, what'd the township do, borrow some money? And I called Mr. Francis, and he said, no, that's the school millage that was passed. How come it doesn't say Bedford School instead of Bedford debt? Did they not want people to know that it's going to the school? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving on to comments from township board members. Mr. Montre?
Nothing from me.
Okay, Mr. Clemens?
Nothing for the good of the order.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Well, I've got something. Do I get Craig's in?
Yeah, you can
this
have my time.
Okay, good. I hear him do that on TV. Whatever, relinquish.
Defer my minutes.
Yeah, defer. Okay, well, is somebody going to answer Mr. Gagne's question?
I am.
Are you? Okay, good. And he's right about I said the 27,000, he's right, that's wrong, so maybe we can correct the minutes before they need to be corrected. Just add 20 to 980 and 2,500, whatever you get. Okay, and then I totally agree with Mr. Track, totally agree. But the dilemma is these people make up their own rules. They do the voting. They vote whether or not, they're going to get rid of the insurance business or no fault, and they vote whether they want to self-regulate themselves, and they don't. So, I mean, we could do the resolution, but it falls on deaf ears. What we need to do is elect people who are willing to make the change, who are willing to promise and carry through with their promises. And that's something, what you said, is what each one of us as electors need to ask people who are running if they're willing to do that. By the way, the sheriff has to do that, right? He has to disclose. Just kidding. You too. Okay, and then if it's, I didn't want to interrupt the discussion about the rezoning for the Temperance Animal Hospital, but I do, is it appropriate for me to ask the question to the attorney now? I don't understand, the purpose that we said that they have to come to this board had to do with the rezoning of Tractor Supply over at the corner of Secor and that whole thing. I was upset about it. I brought the thing to the attention of the board and requested that. They were asking, that was a private landowner asking for a rezoning. So I'm not sure why, and the public hearing was held and all that, but why wouldn't that have to come? I'm not sure I totally understand or agree, and it doesn't matter if I agree or not, if it's the law, it doesn't matter if I agree. But any rezoning, I thought would have to come to the township board. What if it's a spot zoning? Some landowner can't just choose to get a rezoning, whatever they want, wherever they want it. I thought it had to be approved by the board.
Well, ultimately it does. But to initiate, even if it was a spot rezoning that was determined to be inappropriate by our planner, our professional planner, our planning department, or even including the planning commission, ultimately it has to come to this board to be voted on. It has to be either approved or denied by the legislative body of the township, which is this board. What was being discussed with respect to the parcel at Stearns and Lewis was how that process was initiated. It was a special land use approval, and in that case, we didn't have an ordinance that allowed that type of use within that type of zoning district. So inquiries were made to the planning department. It came to me, to my office. There was a void in the ordinance that would even allow that special land use approval for the outdoor commercial sales. So that's the distinction.
Well, I'm sorry, I meant the rezoning. We rezoned to C3, okay, not Tractor Supply. Let's say the Arby's location or you know, I thought any zoning, not the application process, but the decision on whether or not to rezone that is not any different with the animal hospital. We would have to determine that we wanted to rezone it from C1 to C3, right?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay.
But you can't say to a property owner, well, the township board isn't going to accept the application, so you're out of
Oh,
luck.
yeah, I get
We,
that.
so we accept the application, we go through the process, and then the township board ultimately is the decision maker.
Okay.
So the distinction was, and I'd have to go back and look at the resolution that the board adopted. The distinction was, with respect to Stearns and Secor, was a process was put in place to create an ordinance that would allow for outdoor commercial sales. That was the distinction.
Right. I thought you said, and I apologize, I'll stop talking, but I thought you said that if a property owner wants to rezone it, we can't say no. I thought that's what you were saying to Craig, or,
Well, just to elaborate on that, we can't say you can't file the application.
Oh,
We can say no to the rezoning
okay,
when it gets to us ultimately after the planning commission has weighed in, the planning department, our professional planner. We can say no to the rezoning so long as it's not arbitrary, capricious,
right,
and it's based on sound land use principles. We can say no, and we have
right.
in the past.
And the whole point is to give the applicant owner the know that they're gonna be approved more likely or disapproved right off the rip. A lot of times they'll wait 2-3 months and then they come here, or not a lot of times, and then they get told no. So they've spent monies on engineering and
I
then
get
they
that.
get to this point, so the,
I get that. I just thought it was stated to Craig that we can't say no. That's what.
we
okay.
can.
Can't
it's
say
just
no
not
to the
decision.
application.
Okay.
We need to
I'm
go
good.
through the process.
All right.
And us saying what we did tonight should be really no indication to any landowner that it will be approved, because that's why we have a public hearing, and we invite the public come in. We have to by state law to make their comments, and that may have an impact on the planning commission and their recommendation, and that may have an impact on the board members as to how they receive the application and say yes or no with respect to rezoning, because land use, as you know, not only affects the parcel that's sought to be rezoned, but the surrounding or adjacent properties that could be impacted favorably or unfavorably by the rezoning. So we have to give a voice to everybody.
Okay, Mr. Steiner?
So for those that may or may not see the next board meeting, I'll just say, everybody have a safe Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. As I've said before, it gets dark much sooner out there. Be extremely careful. Watch out for those on the road around you. We have great emergency services and police department, everything else to help take care of you in those times of need, but I'd rather see you spend your time at home and not have to dial that 911. So be careful and happy holidays.
Okay, Mr. Francis?
A couple of things. One, just to reiterate again that the winter tax bills for 2019 were mailed out on or before December 1st. Some have already received them. They're due and payable without penalty or interest by February 14th, 2020. And it's coming out in a newsletter on how to make the checks out and what to do and what not to do and how to identify this and that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Mr. Gagne already short-circuited a little bit, is I've had a few calls, hey, how come my taxes went up so much? And so what are you talking about? Well, what's this Bedford thing called Bedford debt? Well, that is the 1.99 mils that the voters approved a year ago to be effective with the December 19th tax bill for the first time and for the next 20 years. That's why the increase. For the school system. It's the bond issue that they passed. Has nothing to do with the township. We just show it on the bill. Could it have been explained a little better on the bill? Absolutely correct, Ken. I think I take the hit for that because I sign off on that. Should have been. Also, probably should have been announced in the paper, maybe by the school district, that, you know, this is coming up, look for it. That might have answered some of the questions before they were even asked, and that should have been done, and I agree with that. That's all I've got.
Okay, Ms. Hirschberger?
Just to, I talked to Krista about that, about the line, and the problem is BSNA doesn't give you a lot of room.
I know.
And we have to write debt, and we have to write Bedford, and it was hard to fit school. We probably could have put BED, SCH, debt. I don't know if that would have been any better, but that's a problem we have. We don't have a lot of room to write anything, and that's been a problem with a lot of things.
Yes,
Bills.
it has. Yes, it has.
We can't write a lot of information when people ask, what's that bill for? And you have all these little things kind of squished in there because there's not a lot of room. But just wanted to echo in on that.
Appreciate it.
The newsletter that Mr. Francis mentioned with those pie charts and information is going to be coming out. You might have gotten them today, but it will be this week coming out. And then in our packet, there was a notice of informational meeting. There will be an informational meeting on Friday, December 13th at 1:30 here in the Township Hall. The Monroe County Drain Commissioner will be presenting information regarding the new 2020 water rates. And that's all I have.
A few things. If you are watching and you saw the SAD approval tonight and you have questions about that, call the clerk's department. There's a lot of neighborhoods that are at that 20 to 25 year mark that haven't been touched in 25 years. And your neighborhood is one of them. Mr. Track, I mean, it's something that if you don't get on, there's a teeter to where if you don't hit that crack seal at minimum, the crack seal, like ours, we're fortunate we're going to have all new blacktop, you know, in the end. And like you said, in 5 years, it could be a $7,000 fix. So look into it. There's a lot of options, but at minimum, crack seals totally prevents the gatoring and the potholes and you know, to where it really gets disastrous. So if you're in a neighborhood and you're waiting for that, don't wait. Come to the township and pull the SAD. What I did was I got 6 or 7 neighbors to help me because it is a lot of work. And we kind of all discussed it, got on the same page, and we knocked on doors. If your door didn't get knocked, we definitely knocked on every door multiple times. You know, so it is a lot of work. So I recommend getting a group of neighbors together and all working it together. So for the people that did help, I appreciate it. I just want to say, keep an eye out on our website. There's a lot of bids on our website right now. The HVAC for the library, the fire department station off of Temperance Road. We have bids out for ceiling for the 3 fire stations and the 2 park properties. So keep an eye out for that. Check it. And I just wanted to say Adler Road, we're getting a decent amount of calls. Adler Road's pretty much our last road that really needs a major job done to it. We're still negotiating and talking with Bedford Township. That road splits down the center for some odd reason. So we have to work a deal out with them. Right now, I think we're kind of in conflict of what the fix should be. So there's going to be a lot more discussions with the board and with the engineers from, I'm sure, on both sides as to what it will be. Wanted to talk about the DDA. For the people that live in Lambertville, the DDA, you see all those improvements because of the Downtown Development Authority. It's a tax capture. Right now, I'm not sure if we're still waiting for word on if we've received the grant yet. We did. We did. We're waiting. Okay. For traffic lights at both entrances of Quail Hollow. That'll hopefully slow some traffic down in there, and then do a traffic study, and hopefully we can change speed limits eventually. But all that money and all those improvements come from a tax capture. We're trying to do that same type of thing right now in Temperance. It's a long process. We have committees that are working on that. And so hopefully soon some information comes about that. We have a lot of openings right now for boards and committees. If you're looking to get involved, there's a lot of positions open. So please get involved. You know, a lot of these, like a planning commission, they approve a lot of the decisions that are made, you know, like the final approval for the Tractor Supply. I mean, so that you can really get involved. Other than that, the Blizzard Fest is going to be the 13th and 14th at St. Paul's Lutheran Church from 5 to 9. It's a free event for the public and surrounding area. Events and festivals are something I'm passionate about. It brings thousands of people into the downtown area, so plan to come on out with your family and kids. There'll be a lot of fun things to do, and like I said, everything's free. So I knew you had something. I knew it, Ms. Tinderberry.
2 quick things. One, I think you should put on the website about the tax bill reason, so people can look on there and see it. But my other question was, is it going to be on the next agenda about the committee of the whole meeting that we had with regard to the millages and?
Well,
I thought we might take it
about
up
the
tonight.
about the millage meeting 2 days ago. About the millage meeting we had, we basically just the discussion was, it was about 2 seconds of discussion that we're not going to put it on in March. It would be in August
Oh, I didn't know you had that meeting. Okay.
and December. Well, I mean, we didn't think Mr. Francis was coming up, but he showed up, and so we had a quorum. And so we opened and had a brief discussion about, I think what we decided at the last meeting was,
Can't decide. It was a
well,
committee
not
of the whole.
decided, but we discussed about putting it on in March, and Ms. Hirschberger found out it is going to cost a decent amount of extra money, about $7,000, $8,000, and we don't want to spend extra money to put a millage on, so.
So at some point, we have to vote, this board has to vote to put it on in August.
We'll get that all put together and then bring it to the
Okay.
board,
All right.
Correct.
the wording.
And I didn't really want to get too deep into it because it is kind of a lengthy discussion, but
Well-
Chief Massing, it'll be better to kind of explain it, but it really is, we have 4 full-time people right now from a grant. That grant ends in 2 years, correct? So we want to maintain those, and from that grant, we're able to perform with these full-time people. We want to be able to add 2 more so they can man both stations full-time. Our response time goes from like 8.5 minutes to roughly 5.5 minutes with the full-time people, and they're able to perform advanced life support rather than the basic life support. So when our ambulances show up to a scene, they can begin working on a patient right away, and that's been within the last year, I think, that we've moved in that direction, which is huge. So you'll hear a lot more about it, but.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, other than that, anybody else have anything? Did I say all that right? Okay. We'll stand adjourned.